Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called When Animals Become Our Greatest Teachers, turning your pet's final journey into a sacred passage of love and healing. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And growing up, I always loved animals and pets, but in the last few years, we've opened a whole new exploration of the Shift Network of really relating to them as souls, as companions, as conscious beings who have their own mission here on the planet. And there's a lot of different layers when you open to this kind of a relationship. And we're going to get to explore one of the most important portals, both for humans and for animals, which is that portal into death and how that can become a bridge into a deeper level of relationship, insight, and healing as well. So we're going to get to explore this with a remarkable teacher. Her name is Monique Brignoni. She's a sacred pet death doula trainer, multisensory animal intuitive, and soul coach, and she's coming to us from Switzerland. So Monique, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Stephen. It's such an honor. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, we're going to dive in. And I also want to let everyone know that we have a brand new course with Monique called A Pet Death Doula's Guide to Sacred Transitions that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour. So, Monique, let's start today with your journey into becoming a pet death doula. I mean, that's an intriguing, it wasn't exactly a career path that was available to anybody before. So you're kind of forging new ground. So share a little bit about, first of all, how did you open up to a different kind of relationship with animals, and then particularly focusing on this portal of death?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. It's so true. I always say that we don't just wake up one morning and decide to work with death and dying, right? But the story is that I've always had a deep connection with animals. But the day my cat Rami was diagnosed with a terminal illness at just 6 years old, that connection instantly turned into panic and overwhelming grief. Suddenly, I wasn't present. I was desperate. I was driven by fear. And while Rami was at the vet getting fluids, I ran to the only place with the internet at that time. It was a local bar. And I obsessively searched for a cure to an incurable disease. And before I left, I always remember this. I whispered to Rami, I said, "Don't worry, my love, I've got you." And he looked up at me with the softest and most loving eyes, Stephen. Really, it was just heartbreaking. And anyway, eventually I did find a miracle cure. And the thing is that when I reached the phone to call the woman that I wanted to connect with, it actually rang. And it was my vet. And he said, "Come now." And I froze. Rami had just died alone on a cold metal table while I was trying to save him from an incurable disease. And that moment was branded in my brain. The last image I had of him was my absence, my disconnection. Now, everyone told me that grief was normal, that the hole in my heart just proved how deeply I loved him. But I kept asking, where did that love go? How did it turn into such unbearable pain, right when Rami needed my love the most? And that one question led me to a decade-long path of studying the sacred end-of-life process. I learned from a vet, from a shaman, Tibetan monk, and I even became a human death doula myself. And with 35 years of spiritual practice behind me, I finally understood that if I stayed in fear, I couldn't feel love. If I stayed in panic, I couldn't be present. And if I stayed in my head, I couldn't connect with Rami and what he actually needed, because I was on the wrong frequency. And Rami wasn't afraid of dying. He was just asking me to love him, not to control. And I couldn't hear that, not then. And that broke me. Anyway, eventually I realized that moment didn't have to be the end of the story, because once I learned how to reconnect with love, how to hold a peaceful heart, everything changed. And I finally began to see what death really was, a sacred passage. So today I train and certify pet death doulas around the world so that every Rami receives the peaceful, loving goodbye that they deserve. And every pet parent learns how to listen and really listen to what matters most, because when that moment comes, we all deserve to meet it with love.
Mm. You know,
Yeah.
you share that story so beautifully, and it's beautiful how you turn the pain of that moment into real service to the world.
Yeah.
So obviously, when a pet is about to transition, it's going to bring up
Yeah.
all of our fears, and so the natural reaction is to, as you're doing, is to try to like avoid the outcome that's going to be very fearful. And so, maybe to share a little bit about how you can kind of prepare for that moment if you have a very deep attachment to a pet, and that you're sort of how you're preparing for when you do enter that portal, and even in advance.
Yeah, sure. Preparation is really important. And, I want to really talk about this as a spiritual journey, because it's easy to see the end of life as something scary, something to fix, something to rush through. And that's because we don't know how to hold it, like you say. But from my experience, I can say that death can turn something that we fear in one of the most spiritual invitation we'll ever receive. That's what happened to me, and it really truly changed my life. But of course, we have to learn all of this beforehand. The thing is that we've been taught to treat the end of life as a medical event, but it's really a spiritual event. And to meet the sacred, we must be equipped with the right tools, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and energetically too. And the thing is that while our pets are transforming from the physical back into, let's say, pure love, we are invited on our transformation too. And this is where the spiritual journey begins, because we get to hold the unknown. We get to love without controlling. We get to expand even when our heart is breaking, Stephen. And I tell you, this transformation has a power to shift everything, because grief becomes connection, fear becomes love, and our animals help us to go from that conditional love that is very human to unconditional love that they have, and even to divine love when we are willing to touch the sacred at that threshold of death. Now, the thing is that in our modern world, we've forgotten how to walk through this sacred doorway. And so most of us, feel that death is the enemy and we have to push it away. And so that when that moment comes, we panic and we look for the right decision. And when we can't find it, we even feel that we've failed. And that brings a lot of grief, Stephen, really. But the truth is that we don't need more answers. We need more awareness. Yeah.
You share it just in such a warm and loving way. It's really clear that you've gone through this transition yourself in a powerful way. Is part of what happens if you're really opening to that, it's a spiritual transition rather than a medical event, that you're able to retain or even journey somewhat through that portal with your animal, if you're sort of keeping that open-hearted connection alive through that portal?
Absolutely, because the thing is that fear and grief and confusion that comes from the current way of dealing with the end of life brings us in these lower vibrations. And in these lower vibrations, we have a tunnel vision, our energy restricts, we can only see what's right in front of us and the worst case scenario. When we are able to expand our energies, find that calm, we touch that compassion, which that compassion is not a rational decision, it's a state of being. We touch the high frequencies of love. And when we do that, basically, because our pets, when they're transitioning, even us really, when we're transitioning, our energy, whilst our bodies are dissolving, breaking down, becoming weaker and weaker, our energy is expanding and becoming stronger and stronger. And so it's just like in a meditation, how maybe we have a pain and then we go in it and all of a sudden that pain doesn't exist, right? So, but imagine that a million times more. Because they are raising their frequencies to be able to match the frequencies of where they are going. And so when we are able to match that, or at least be peaceful in those energies, we are taken with them. We get to be taken with them as well. And whether we actually see exactly everything that happens, but we definitely connect with them. We definitely know at all times what to do, what not to do. We feel them, which is completely the opposite of my story with Rami, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
So now that you've been training people to do this and people doing it professionally, so are people reporting experiences of actually journeying through the portal into death and to the other side? We have taught some programs on shared death experiences, and people can literally journey through the light with somebody who's dying and then come back. And it's
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm just curious if you're getting reports of that with the pets as well.
Yeah, not necessarily. I've had many what I call mystical experience where I really went into the situation, and that was before the dying, actually. That was before the dying. I've had also a lot of experiences afterwards. I didn't get to do that journey that you say, but definitely when we align with that, that is definitely a possibility. Yes, yes, I love it.
We also have programs with animal communication and just in general being able to sort of open the psychic intuitive channels that sort of allow a more full spectrum communication. How important is to this process? Is it sort of like a nice to have but not really necessary to sort of really optimize the experience?
No, it's not necessary. It's not only their transformation, it's our transformation. And this is why it's also a spiritual journey. We are basically learning to be able to be calm, to be centered, to be within, which is all what we need also to communicate with animals. So we naturally know what our animals are needing, what they are saying. A lot of people think that animal communication is they hear the voice that their pet says, "Oh, I want a carrot right now," right? It's not like that, right? I mean, some can be like that, but the reality is that a feeling, a knowing, an understanding, a vision, and all of that can happen when we are in the right frequencies, when we are in these higher frequencies, when we are worried, when we don't know what to do, when we are stressed and in pain. We can't even communicate. That's normal. So all of this work makes us naturally understand and communicate with our animals. Yes. Yeah.
When humans are approaching a sort of end of life, there's often a sort of an inventory process, a sort of a reflective process. Is there anything that's parallel in terms of like on the human side, working through like what is the pet meant to you? Is sort of like a kind of a extended closure process that you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, the thing is that I would be here for many hours if I had to reply to that, but absolutely. This is a journey where we do a lot of introspection because what happens is in these higher frequencies that I said, when a pet is transitioning, everything that is of a lower frequency starts bubbling up, right? And it comes to the surface. Now, if we're able to know how to be in that moment, then we are guided into healing maybe wounds that we had, that we've been having for a long time, or things that are happening because our pets don't come in our lives by chance. They actually respond to an energetic call that we have in a certain moment. And what I have seen is that they bring gifts during our life, they help us. But during the end of life, there's like a specific understanding of why they came in our lives, why that exact pet came in our lives. And it's so beautiful to see these transformations, these healings that are happening, Stephen. And I know that because of this, it's coming, we are basically helping the person come to a completion where it's not just death on a physical level. We have to tend to the physical and that's it. It's about our transformation as well. And when we heal what's bubbling up, when we understand why our pet came into our lives, let's say the mission that they came here to do, our awareness expands. And then at the end of life, although grief comes whilst we are accompanying them, on this journey, the good thing is that because we have wagging tails and kisses and and happy faces, even in those moments, we have a grief and then we have a smile, and then we are sad and then we have a smile, and that teaches our brain to what is happening. also we have all of these healings that are happening, right? And we also have this awareness and this understanding of why our pet came into our lives. We understand about death and dying, and that it's not the end, but it's a beginning of something new, and we can certainly help them. And with all of these things, we basically have what I call a completion. A completion that means it's not that we don't, shed a tear, we don't cry when they actually take their last breath, but what happens on all levels, not just physical, but also our mental, our emotional, and our energetic levels, they're at peace. So we don't have that grief that lasts forever and ever and ever. You have no idea how many people are still in grief after maybe 10 years. I speak to them a lot, and it just breaks my heart, because there is a way to heal this grief. There is a way.
If someone is still carrying grief like that, and part of it was that their missed opportunity of death, or maybe there was a sense of incomplete mission, as you were talking about, like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of go back and rewire that, so it's no longer traumatic or held in that negative way?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny, because I just do the same exact things that I do in my, in the with other people, whilst they're having a pet that is dying, because there are many layers to grief. The first one is the mind keeps asking what is going on, because there isn't that completion hasn't happened. So when we explain what has actually really truly happened, because we have an image of dying is painful. Dying is painful. We've been told that. And as soon as our pets start becoming weak, they lose weight, their fur is bedraggled, all of that, when we look at them, we just think about suffering, we think about pain. There are also certain things that happen at the very last stage of the end of life, and you, Stephen, might be aware of these if you know about human death and dying as well. They're interpreted like pain, but they're really not, because at that stage, the energy is much more powerful than the body, right? Like I was saying before, when we go in meditation, we become so expanded, our energy becomes so expanded that anything that's happening in the body is not felt, right? And so, but of course, when we look at death only from the physical, we don't see that. We don't know these things, right? So when we look at our cat that is, no longer fluffy and no longer nice, or, thin, we immediately start feeling bad, and and we think that they're suffering. So when I explain all of these things, and I also explain these last moments of the end of life that they have maybe interpreted as painful, as horrible, and when I help them to understand what is truly happening, that's already one relief. Then we go through the mission and why the pets came into our lives, and the illness that they had, what did it tell us? The situation, what did it tell us? All of these things bring all of these healings up, right?
Oh, that's nice. So I just want to highlight that. So you're seeing the illness that they come up with as part of their mission a lot of times, then.
Absolutely. Mission, the illness, maybe not part of the mission itself, like the first initial mission, but definitely part of a way that we can help in our healing as well. They are mirroring a lot in us, and when I look at an illness, I can discover a lot of things from there, and it's beautiful to see the faces of the people go like, "What, really?" So yes, and so these are all healings, Stephen, that happen that then help that grief. Now, of course, help heal that grief. Of course, the thing is, if we do it beforehand, right? We know death is coming. It's funny, we prepare for everything in life, bar the one thing that we know that is coming for sure, right? But if we prepare, then we don't need to have that grief stay with us for all of that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just ask another question around the mission component. I'm kind of a mission person in general, and just that
Okay.
how is it that you're sort of piecing together or helping people to find what was the mission and really reflect on that, integrate that, maybe honor the animal for that before they transition. So something just about like how you're sort of like understanding that deeper context of why they came.
So for example, so like I said before, in these energies of transition, first there are all of these lower energy, problems and traumas and difficulties that are bubbling up if they're meant to be healed, right? And so we get a chance in those moments by being with a pet parent. We share things, and in those moments we understand what is coming up and how we can heal them. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is we think that the moment of death comes from a time, an illness, a vet, a prognosis. The reality is that it's energy that decides that. And it decides that on many things, also energetically, also on the mission, right? So there are certain, let's call lessons that we are here to learn. And our pets are really great at showing us those lessons. In fact, I always say that if we do have a pet, we're on a fast track to evolution, because it's like one thing after the other, right? And they're really there to support us do that. And so through the end of life, their last journey, in that moment where they get an illness to the last breath, in that moment, Stephen, certain things that happen are specific to the person that is with them, right? To their beloved person, right? And so when we can identify that, then we can understand so much more about ourselves. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what if somebody let's say your pet has not had any diagnosis of anything, there's not, but maybe 10, 12 years old, a dog is sort of like, oh, okay, maybe I should start doing this preparation. What are the first things you recommend people start doing to prepare?
Well, the first thing is really to look inside of us and to understand, am I afraid of death? Can I hold my calm? Can I hold my presence? And always realize that basically decisions made out of fear, out of worry, are mind decisions, right? They are not really what our heart wants and what our pet wants, because when we are in worry, we're totally disconnected. So we really need to be honest with ourselves and understand whether we can hold that space. If we can't hold it, I suggest that they come and take a course, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we can't hold it, that's really good. I suggest that in that moment, they keep returning to that presence. I have many spiritual people that it's just really easy with them to help them, because, it's funny. A spiritual person is very spiritual, but then when it comes to the end of life of their pets, they're completely the opposite. It goes all out of the window. So I'm just there to remind them, do you know that practice that you do when whatever practice they do, right? And I remind them, and they go like, oh yeah, okay, do it now, right? In that moment they center, in that moment they calm down, and all of a sudden everything that was emergency, I need to run, my pet is in pain, I don't know what to do, I need to decide now, all calms down. And because our pets know how to, Mother Nature has created us really well. We started from a really small cell to the beings that we are today, Stephen, and we can say that she's got things really well. And it's not that she's missing at the end of life. She was there when we were born, and she's there when at the end of life. And we don't have to forget that. I really feel that we should not forget that. So yeah.
Beautiful.
So when we're able to be present, I would suggest that, the presence and the calm is the number one. It's actually really, you can do a lot with that. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I know you also want to take us into a bit of an experiential to start to ground some of what you've been teaching in people's personal experience. And I think now would be a great time to do that.
Okay, let's do it then.
Gently close your eyes and bring to mind an animal companion that you deeply love. It can be one who's with you right now, one who passed, or you can simply imagine a kitten or a puppy curled up and purring softly on your chest. Feel them there, warm, soft, breathing. their heartbeat synchronized with yours. Feel your heart begin to respond. Let the love arise. Feel it. Feel the tingle. Let it swell in your chest and fill your whole being. Now amplify this love just a little more. Maybe bring up a memory, a funny moment, a sweet one. But if sadness tries to creep in, immediately go back to a funny moment, to a loving moment. Let the love spread inside of you now. Let that love expand. Let it fill your space. Now amplify it even more, as much as you can. Feel it deep in every cell of your body. And smile as you feel that love moving through you. Now, keeping that smile and holding that immense love in your heart, gently come back to the room and open your eyes.
Okay, now let me ask you something. Where is your pet right now? Maybe they're on your lap, maybe they're on the other side, or maybe they're in the laundry room sitting on the freshly folded clothes. But here's what I want you to notice. The love you just felt, it didn't come from them, it came from you. Yes, they activated it, but the love lives inside of your heart. You were able to grow it, to feel it fully, even without them physically here. And that means that love is never gone. Even when our beloved companions leave their bodies, the love remains. So the real question is, are we willing to learn how to keep that channel open? Because we can. We can learn from our pets. They don't feel the loss, we do. So it's up to us to choose connection over closure, and to remember that we have that power to stay connected.
Well, it's a beautiful vision you're holding, that it's just a transition to another level of relationship, and in fact can be higher and even more meaningful, even outside of an embodied connection. That's beautiful. I'm
Yes.
wondering if there are recommendations you have about how to maintain and continue that relationship out of the body, that are, whether it's creating an altar or some sense of ritual connection, or how do you maintain that and deepen that connection?
Well, I feel that the most powerful way is through our energy, because of course they've transitioned and they are in a higher vibrational state right now. So again, usually what happens when our pets leave, we just go into this grief, into this sadness. But from there, we can't be connected because our energy, let's say it's here, and their energy is up here, right? So in order to feel connected, we need to get closer to that energy. And the closer we are to that energy, the easier it is to feel that connection. The great thing about learning about death and dying before, and about taking those steps to practice and understand how this expanded awareness can change everything, is that after death, and this happens so in so many of my students, I see smiling people. You know, I get messages that say, "Oh, Fluffy just died yesterday, and it was beautiful." And I go like, "Beautiful? Okay." She took my course. You know, but even my mom didn't take my course, but when our Great Dane Daya died, we walked her home. You know, we stayed with her until the last breath. And by doing all of these little steps that we did together, in that moment, I thought that she would just break down at that last breath. And I looked up and she was holding Daya's big face, you know, big Great Dane. And she looked at me and she had a smile. And she said, "I can feel her. I can feel her. She's here." And this is why I'm saying, this is why I'm so excited, because when we are able to hold these higher frequencies, we are really able to, even if we're not able to do the journey like you said, we're able to connect with them in such a big, huge way, because those energies are so strong, Stephen, so strong that that they change our lives forever. I was a person that I didn't have much self-worth, and I was, although I was feeling things, and Penelope Smith was my animal communicator teacher, right? But I wasn't trusting myself. I was like, no, I can't do that. But then as the years went by, I realized that it was all inside of me, and she always told me that, by the way. But the great thing was that when I had these mystical experiences with my pets in these moments, they were so real, Stephen, that nobody had to tell me it was true. Because usually I would go up to the vet, and if the vet would say something, then I would just go like, "Oh, okay," and I'll go back down into my, you know. But now this is more real than this life, and so yeah, it's given me so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of getting an interesting picture as you're talking about holding the higher frequency, and that it's like because you're so connected, that it's like that if you can keep that linkage, it's going to just lift your frequency of consciousness,
Yeah.
because you're kind of tethered in a way
Absolutely.
to your ascended pet at that point.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly.
That's a beautiful image. It's sort of like, in some ways, maybe it's not the best metaphor, but like the reason we spend time around teachers and saints and gurus is that their frequency elevates us. And so you keep that connection alive, so there's a natural elevation that comes.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I say as well, because that happens as well. It happened to one of my cats. I was really sad. I was crying, and I knew I had to change my energy before I was going to approach Shen. But I managed up to one point, and then I just couldn't. And then all of a sudden I got close to him, and all of a sudden I felt this peace that was like, what it didn't come from me. It's like I was crying 2 seconds before, and all of a sudden I think I was like an ascended master at that point. I was just so peaceful. I was like, what? And then I took him in my arms, and I looked at his blue eyes, and in that moment I was transported I became him. I really became him. And in that moment I knew more than anything that he wasn't in pain. Of course, I was looking at his body. I was going, he must be really in pain. But when I felt that was so true, so real, more than anything else, that I started to ask questions and understand. And that's why I kept on, like, it was like, okay, this journey started. I need to see where that love went. And then 10 years later, I was still studying, because the more I learned, the more I wanted to know. It's just so. Yeah.
It's really beautiful what you're sharing. I think it really does. It's compelled me in terms of why this can be such an accelerator for your spiritual awakening too, to sort of engage this process in this way. So very beautiful. Well, let's talk a little more explicitly about your upcoming course, since I know people are going to be touched and moved by what you've shared and want to learn more from you. You've been teaching on a wide variety of dimensions of this, and I'm really grateful that you have synthesized some of the best teachings and practices into a Pet Death Doula's Guide to Sacred Transitions. Walking soul to soul with your pet through their end-of-life journey. You can find it at the URL sacredcompanionscourse.com, sacredcompanionscourse.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites, so it's really just if you're intuitively drawn to this. And so, Monique, I'd love for you to share a little bit about some of your intentions for the program, then we can go through the modules and give a preview of what's coming.
Yeah, so the intention is really simple, is to get prepared beforehand, because like I was saying before, if we're not prepared, it's like if we if we get thrown into a pool or a pool of water and we haven't learned how to swim, we can't just say to the person, the person that is in the pool, we can't just say, well, just relax and don't worry, and oh, it's normal that a bit of water goes in your nose. All of that doesn't make sense at all, right? We need to be able to prepare beforehand, and when we do, that's not only going to help our pets, but we see how we can grow in the process as well. And it's amazing. Like I said, fast track on our spiritual evolution. And then we know that we can really truly accompany our pets in the best possible way. Because when we make decisions out of fear, that's restriction. That energy is restriction. We can't see the bigger picture. We can't connect. We can't feel that love. Just like Rami was looking at me with loving eyes. I thought, I mean, of course I was loving him, of course, but I wasn't exuding that love. I wasn't giving him what he needed in that moment. And so when we prepare beforehand, then we can. And that journey is beautiful. Then we can find beauty even in death. Yes.
Beauty. Beautiful. Module 1 is called Reframe End-of-Life Decisions to Support a Sacred Heart-Led Goodbye.
Yes. So when our Fluffy, let's say, gets a terminal diagnosis, we have to look what happens inside of us. Our heart races, our minds scramble to fix. And suddenly we're no longer with Fluffy. We're in the future worrying. We're in the past panicking for what we did wrong the last time. So this first module is about slowing that moment way down and becoming aware of how our subconscious beliefs, such as maybe what we've heard about cancer, or what the vet says during a terminal diagnosis, can trigger an automatic decision that doesn't always reflect what our pets are actually asking for. So we move from this knee-jerk, what should I do energy, into a deeper soul-led question as, what is truly happening here? How can I meet this situation with love rather than fear? We also, sorry, I just remembered something. We also explore the emotional dynamics between human and animals, the quality of life charts and the myths around that, and how to begin building a new compass, one based on presence, connection, and intuition. Yeah.
Very cool. Module 2 then is called Embrace Death as a Teacher to Cultivate Peace, Trust, and Presence.
So yes, in module 2, we go into the difficult conversation of death. And of course, you and I know, and a lot of people know that death is not the end. It's a beginning. It's a mirror. It's a teacher. And most of us spend our life trying to avoid it. But animals, they don't fear that. They don't try to avoid the inevitable. They live in presence. So in this part of the journey, we begin to gently turn towards what we've been taught to run away from. And we look at death denial and how that keeps us stuck in panic and resistance, how that resistance actually makes it harder to really be here for them, for our pets, really, 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 when our pets need us the most.
Module 3, See Through Your Pet's Eyes to Deepen Trust and Connection.
Now, this is one of my favorite parts of the course, module 3, because we stop trying to figure everything out with our human minds and we start seeing through our pet's eyes. So again, let's imagine Fluffy and we're sitting with her and she's nearing the end. She's not worried about her bucket list or wondering what happens after she dies. She's just present, following the life force and the energies of transitions that are telling her what to do. Animals don't fear death the way we do. They don't carry all the stories of guilt and projections, but they do feel us. And when we are in panic, when we are sad, when we have this inner chaos, it can be uncomfortable for them, even in their physical symptoms. So in this module, we tune into the natural wisdom, their truth, and we stop assuming what they need, and we start feeling what is actually true for them. Yes.
Module 4, transform fear into love to support your pet through change.
Yes. And so this is where the shift on a deeper level starts, because we understand fear, we transmute it, and then we see where fear is guiding us. Because when something changes in our pet, basically fear immediately arrives. But fear is really an invitation to grow some strength inside of ourselves so that we can then support our pets. Fear contains a medicine that can lead us to peace. We're also going to learn how to tune into the frequencies of love and how to hold them no matter what. This is so important, and it connects to what we were talking about. So yes.
Module 5, reframe pain to deepen healing and spiritual insight.
Ooh. So Stephen, this is a really in-depth module. It's like an entire module on pain. And the reason I did that is because we really need to expand our understanding on pain, because only by doing that and seeing it on all levels, we can truly soothe it. And honestly, this is a game changer. I see it every time. Students arrive, maybe watching every Twitch like Sherlock Holmes, convinced that their pets are suffering, and naturally they go into panic, and that's normal. Of course, we want to stop pain, but from that state, it's impossible. So this module gives something new, an awareness, a deeper understanding of what is actually happening. And the beauty is that once they see it, they can relax, begin to feel exactly what their pets truly want.
Module 6 is then prepare for a good death with love, presence, and spiritual awareness.
Yeah, usually a good death, we feel that it's about avoiding pain. And of course that matters, but a good death is not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and energetically. So it's about what's happening beneath the surface, beneath what we can see, and how we can show up in a way that honors all of those layers.
Finally, Module 7, tune into the right time and receive the soul gifts your pet came to share.
One of the most frequently asked questions is it time? But the reality is that there is no truth, no chart, no calendar, no vet that can tell us exactly the time, because the time of transition is directed by energy. And with everything that we've walked through in the previous modules, we are able to hear something deeper, sacred time. So just like birth doesn't follow our human clocks, it follows a quiet intelligence when everything is ready. And just as a baby arrives, only after the unseen miracle of the cells become life, death too, it's a culmination. And we learn how to feel that. So yeah.
Well, what a beautiful course. And it's really clear that the implications go beyond
Yes.
relationship with our pets. It's really a deep exploration of our spiritual path and how to approach death in a different way. And our pets are an opportunity to do that. But it's quite profound what you're offering. So I'll share a few other elements about the program. So not only do you get the 7 90-minute live sessions with Monique, which is going to include interaction time, Q&A time, you also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts. All really helpful to go back and be able to study and practice things that you might have missed. There's weekly exercise and practices for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses that Monique has been generous in offering. There's a video teaching called Becoming the Alchemist. I'm going to share anything more about Becoming the Alchemist.
Yes, it's all about how we can transform our emotions, our energies in such a moment. And this is really powerful. Yes. Yeah.
That is one bonus. There's another bonus, a video exploration of pain versus suffering. Anything you want to share on that one?
Yes, absolutely. That's really essential, actually. A lot of people feel that their pets are suffering. In reality, pets don't suffer, because suffering is when we think about the story, when we understand the difference between pain and suffering, we can really realize that most of the time we are the ones that are suffering. And then we can change that. We can find ways to change that. So that's really important. Yes.
Beautiful. And then there's one final bonus that you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. This is a video teaching from Monique called What Pets Teach Us on Death and Dying. You want to share about that special bonus for today?
Yes, so that's how all of this came together. That talks about when our Great Dane was dying and how she taught. I've been studying, like I said, for 10 years, and all of these studies were all different things put on the side, but she taught me how to put them all together. And so it's a beautiful journey through all of the teachings and how we can accompany our pets home and feel the love and feel the connection.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, it's a beautiful extra bonus that you get when you sign up right away by midnight. So it's truly going to be an amazing program. This is really opening new paradigms of what's possible and also real wide implications for how you approach death and your spiritual practice and life. So it's going to be a real blessing. So we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start July 8th and run Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts in the community as well. There's some beautiful testimonials from folks who have worked with Monique, and it's really clear, I think, from this hour, just how dedicated and how loving and how wise she is in this realm. So you're in really good hands, and you will, I think, have some really profound transformations and get some really useful tools as well. So again, it's all at sacredcompanionscourse.com. And again, you get that special bonus if you register right away, called What Pets Teach Us on Death and Dying. Yeah. So Monique, this has been a really delightful hour. You're really also just a very radiant person. It's really clear how this work has impacted your life. So thank you for sharing it. And anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are curious about going further into your course.
I would love to accompany them, because yes, I was truly pulling my hair when my cat Rami died, and now my end of lives are just peaceful and they're beautiful, and I feel the love whilst they're passing, whilst we're doing the journey together, and also from the other side. So it's just worth it, really, really worth it. It really changes us inside, and so let's make sure that love has the final word. I would be honored to walk this path with you.
Love that. Love having the final word. It's a great way to close. Thank you, Monique. And thank you all for joining. If you'd like to go further, again, Sacred Companions course, and you'll get that special bonus if you sign up by midnight tonight. And we'll say love to end. So love has final word.
Love. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.